Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, we got a D&D video. Stick with it. That evil guy is a Lich King. So it's an undead style, undead in the swamps kind of style of one shot. So I ran a mini session the Thursday prior, and that went till about 2. So that started around 8 and went till 2 in the morning. So that's usually a small session for us. The one shot went way longer than that, which is normal. For us. We usually do longer sessions and late at night. So in the mini session, introduced 4 PCs. The other 3 were not there for the mini session, but that was fine. Like I told them, you did not have to be here for this. This was just, well, actually, it kind of came up on the fly, and 4 guys were like, hey, let's do it. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So we have, first character is the one I love the most. His name is Riddles. It's a human rogue who is a high-functioning sociopath and a cannibal. A very interesting character, actually played by one of my best friend's fathers, my best friend's dad. He is he works like some psychology, neuroscience, like stuff like that. So he thought that would be a really interesting character, and it's a one-shot. Go crazy. An unknown character, I forget his name, but it was a Triton monk who was an alcoholic. Not Way of the Drunken Master, but he was an alcoholic. And another unknown character name was a halfling lycanthrope scientist, and I believe he was a blood hunter, that was his class. And then there was a human cleric of the Tempest. So this is 4 we got going into this mini session. Each of them had a magic item, because I had them roll. The cleric rolled 50%, well, they rolled a D100, and I said, cleric, at 50 or lower, you get a magic item. And everyone else, if you get a 33 or lower, you get a magic item. So Riddles had a cloak of undead fortitude, because he prayed to the god of death. And the god of death was like, here you go. And the Triton monk prayed to the goddess of fire, and was granted the cantrip Firebolt. Never used it, but he still had it. Halfling got a quarterstaff that when he hit an individual with it, they had to pass a DC 15 strength check in order to not be paralyzed. And the human cleric got an orb. He prayed to the god of war, and he got a, well, they didn't pray. It was more like an item they got from the god. So he got an item from the god of war, and it was a black orb. It was called the Black Orb of Power, and he didn't know what it did or how to activate it. So that's what we got running into the mini session, and the mini session started. I had them all roll d20s and add their initiative to the roll to see who got introduced first. So we first started out with the Triton monk, and then we added in the halfling scientist, and then Riddles, and then finally the cleric. But started out with the monk in the bar drinking, and it worked really well for me. I said, where do you start? And he said, I want to start in the bar. I said, perfect. And then I said that the halfling noticed him. They had a little interaction, but the halfling really just kind of stayed and wrote notes about things. He was very meticulous, and he wanted to learn from everything. He didn't really want to be in combat. He more wanted to learn, which is interesting for a blood hunter. But it was an interesting concept. So the monk left the bar, and the scientist followed him. And then Riddles was in his apartment, washing his hands, doing some stuff around his apartment, and he noticed them outside. He noticed the commotion. He went down met up with them to go see what was going on. And basically what happened is he just kind of watched from afar, and when they got outside the town, there was the cleric. Cleric tried, the halfling stole the bottle of whiskey from the monk. The cleric wanted to get it back. The cleric tried to give it back to the monk. The monk didn't like that, punched him, and they got into a little scuffle. Needless to say, the cleric almost died. But the cleric did hit, this is important information, the cleric did hit Riddles. So after all this scuffle, basically this happened, and then Riddles got revenge by stabbing him, bringing him down to 1 hit point by a stab in the tavern that no one else could see, a little scuffle with the guards, and then eventually the monk was told that he needed to go to the capital. He didn't know why, and then the scientist was given a letter. So the two of them, so Riddles and cleric are back in the thing, and basically the cleric somehow left because he wanted to return that the bottle of whiskey to the monk, because one of his traits was, I am helpful to my bitter end, and he sure was. And then Riddles then was approached in the middle of the night, and it was a guard, and he said, basically, I heard a rumor that you stabbed this dude or whatever. It's okay, I will not charge you, but here's a task for you. The king His Holiness is looking to have someone of your expertise, basically, and he said, what's in it for me? And he said, fame and money. And Riddles was like, let's go. Riddles didn't like fame, but he liked money. And before he left, he put on a disguise, and he became Rome, who was a ranger. Now, Riddles was a rogue, so he became Rome, and Rome claimed to be a ranger. So they left the town of Frigrin, and they went to Darmonte. So there was a gap in time before the big group started the session. Boom, starting the session Saturday night. Everyone's, we're having like cold cuts and cheese and having some good old fries and getting ready to rock and roll. And the backstory they got was the king had gathered some of the greatest heroes from across the the continent of Nartura, and the adventurers agreed to go on the journey because the king offered them fame and fortune. So we got to get introduced to some more characters here. Half-orc paladin by the name of Link, a dwarven barbarian who was the subclass Juggernaut, and a human barbarian who was the subclass Totem Warrior. So these three joined the party, and right away I said, okay, you get all this background information, roll for initiative. They're like, what? I said, you see 3 big objects and it looks like a human in the back, roll for initiative. 3 ogres and an oni. They dispatched them extremely fast. Unbelievably fast. Like, I was expecting them to take a little bit, but nope. Done. Game over. They then kept walking through the swamp, and they came up to some lizard folk. But they were not happy with the Triton monk because in the mini session he stumbled into one of their camps and ended up killing one in self-defense. But they didn't like him. But the lizard folks asked if they could help, if the adventurers could help them out with a war with the bullywugs, and the lizard folk could only take 3 because any more the king would feel threatened. So the 3 chosen by the party to go was the paladin, Link, the dwarven barbarian, the Juggernaut, and the cleric. So the 3 of those guys go, and stealth behind them was Riddles as Rome. So he followed behind them. As they went and then they went and talked to Lizard Folk King, and the Lizard Folk King basically told them where the cave was that was hiding all this evil, and then Rome went back to the party and was like, hey, let's go over to this cave, explore it. I think that's where the evil the king was talking about. So they went, and so the party split. The 3 that was split from the rest of the party, 3 that was with the lizard folk, then they went to the bullywugs, and the paladin used his spell Detect Evil, and I said that you could tell that the lizard folk were genuine, and then the bullywug was just one's war, and he cannot be swayed. So one of the things I want to do with this is I wanted to see what would happen if I forced the party to split. I didn't really force them to split, but I kind of pushed that on them. and I wanted to see how they'd react to certain situations. So the group of 4 went to the cave, went in, went straight to the throne room, and they all died except for Riddle, who was now Rome. Riddle was far enough back, and as soon as they were all dying, he went, "I'm out of here," because that's what he does. So the party then meets up, at least the ones that are left, and then they head towards the cave. They meet a fighter and a bard. Other guy went to sleep, so they met the fighter and the bard. 3 characters. Yeah. 3 characters died, but only 2 characters joined because one of them had to get up the next morning. So the new group went in the cave, and then they cleared the passages one by one. The cave was set up with a straight line, and then one to the a passageway to the right, a passageway to the left, another passageway to the right, another passageway to the left, and then straight on to the throne room. So they got, as they were clearing, they got some good magic items. They got a +2 shield, so that a shield would actually give +4 to their armor class. A thing called Favor of the Gods, where if you got damaged, you could use this as a reaction and not take any damage for that damage sequence. So, like, if someone hit you for 100 hit points, you could say, "I use Favor of the Gods," and then it just negates all the damage. Ray of Holiness is another thing they got. They are able to shoot a ray that any undead take 3.8, 3d8s, I forget what type of damage, but it was some type of damage. And then the last one that they got removed one of the Lich's legendary resistances. So they fought the Lich. During the fight, the cleric got hit with a lot of different spells. The orb started to do a couple weird things. The orb cracked and broke during their fight. The Lich was down to about 80 hit points, and he had just disappeared and came back with 4 more zombie ogres. The Lich originally had a Lich, 2 zombie ogres, and a lot of zombie minions. Like, I'm talking like 200 zombie minions. The cleric walked in and was like, "Use my remove undead up to a CR of 1. No, it was a CR of 2, I think. And then wiped them. And luckily, the zombie ogres I had buffed, so I said they wouldn't really be a CR of 2. They'd be closer to a CR of 2.5. And I said, "Sorry, man, but you can't do that with them." Because I really wanted to make this a deadly encounter. And it was. As you can see before, the 4 of them couldn't do it, so Riddle went back and got the rest of the group. So the bard gave them all inspiration up to 1d10, and one of them got 10, one of them got 3, one of them got 5, so they had good inspiration bonuses. So when this orb got hit with all these fireballs and spells, it cracked and broke, and it created a vacuum that sucked in the Lich and his minions into the abyssal plane with the bard and the human fighter, effectively killing them. The paladin, dwarven barbarian, and the cleric were sucked into heaven because they had them all roll a d20. Oh, the cleric I didn't because it was his magical item. But the paladin, the dwarven barbarian, I said roll a d20, and I gave them a DC of 25. They had to beat a DC of 25, which is really hard, but they also had all this inspiration. They both rolled 30s. So I said, "You know what? You guys go to heaven." And Riddles was far enough away not to get sucked in, but I had him make a couple dex save to avoid falling rocks. And then the group that remained alive were given notable status in the Kingdom of Florg, and they were given, I think I said like 200 platinum pieces or something crazy like that. But that was the one shot. And things I learned, one is players are going to want to know things that you shouldn't tell them as a DM. 2, make pro checks really hard, because, gods don't answer that much. Well, in like these D&D world settings, gods shouldn't answer very often. It's okay to buff creatures and stuff. A +4 shield is ridiculous. I shouldn't have given him a +4 shield, but it was okay because of the deadly encounter that was ahead of them. I bumped the Lich. I really bumped the Lich up. He got, instead of him having 138.5 hit points and an armor class of, 16 or 17, he had an armor class of 19, and his hit points were doubled. So he had 270 hit points. So the Lich was very strong. He did try to use Power Word Kill in the second encounter, and I rolled d4. I said 1, 2, 3, 4. And I rolled on the Dwarven Juggernaut, who had over 100 health, so it did nothing. So he got rid of his Power Word Kill. He is Power Word Stun. On the Cleric, just, you know, things that would happen that a Lich would do. But anyway, they ended up winning, and I wrote into my lore that the Festival of Link, because Link was the group leader, I had them all roll and add their charisma bonus, and Link was the group leader, and I said, congratulations, you have a holiday named after you, because you're the group leader. Fun little one-shot, ran from about 7:30 to 4. It's a long one. It was a long one-shot. I like running long sessions. You know, some people will be like, that's not that long. Other people will be like, wow, that's really long. My D&D sessions are 3.5 hours. Okay, my D&D sessions usually run for my main campaign about 3 hours to 3.5 hours. That's my usual session time. Just because I don't want it to be too long, because if it gets too long, then you just kind of lose everything. As far as the one shot, I ran that pretty long, but they did it, and I'm glad they did it. It was a lot of fun with one shot, you know. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else to add to this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.